All right, my friends, welcome to another Let's Talk with the Doc. I'm excited to be here as always, and I am glad to have a special guest. I say that every week, and I know I sound like a scratch record, and I say that every week as well. But this is no exception because I have Daryl Lobban, Reverend Daryl Lobban, with me that I have not seen him in years. Until when I see him now, I couldn't recognize who he was until I saw the name. So it's been a while. So when I come back, I'm going to be talking to Reverend Daryl Lobban. Stay right there. Should be an interesting conversation. ORB Ministry presents Let's Talk with the Doc. Grace Without Borders podcast. A thought for you. Ask Pastor. And a whole lot more. You never know what's next or who will join the conversation. All right, so here we are, Reverend Daryl P. Lobban. I'm giving all the titles
Yeah,
and all the
whole government.
yeah, the whole thing. Welcome to Let's Talk with the Doc.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's been, as you said earlier, it has certainly been years since I've seen you. Have to be probably at least probably 10 years.
Oh my God, I can't remember
Yeah.
which year did you go in up in Massachusetts?
I left from Massachusetts in 2012. So it's
So
been
that's 13 years.
13 years. I now live in Washington, D.C., though. But
Oh
yeah, so that's part of the journey. So yeah, so it's definitely have been quite a bit of time.
man, oh man. Well, I'm delighted to see you. I'm excited to see you. Also, I know that something not right with my screen here. I'm just wondering. Hold a second. Let me something not right with my backdrop. Let me see if I could change something here.
Okay.
Okay, that's a little bit better. So I okay, that's a little bit more like it.
Got to
Okay.
stay on brand. I hear
All right, so I'm excited to have you, man. I was wondering, how did my screen look so queer? I couldn't figure what was going on. All
you.
right, so tell me something about. I mean, I haven't seen you, but it's good to see you. And I know a lot of people don't know Daryl, and those who know Daryl don't know Daryl's story because people don't generally know your story.
That's very true.
They see you, they hear you, they communicate with you. Even those people who some people grew up with you don't know what your story really is.
Yeah.
That's why I find this kind of program so fascinating. For preachers and people like you who run organizations, they see you coming as the executive, as the director, as the preacher, pastor. They just see you on the pedestal,
Yeah.
and they give you that kind of respect. But sometimes they don't even uh, classify or categorize you as an average normal person who have good days, bad days, ups and down. So
Yeah.
having this conversation put into perspective that we are all really real human, and we travel the same rough roads to get to our destinies where we are sometimes. So for those who don't know Daryl, tell us about Daryl. Where was Daryl born? What was it like growing up? Do you have
Yeah.
siblings where you fall in the gap? What's the family dynamics, etc. As much as you want to say, as little as you want to say.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess to start off, yeah. So Daryl, that's my name. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. So, um, born in East Flatbush section of Brooklyn. Born and raised there. I think the first time, actually, and this is funny. One of my first memories, actually, of you is actually when I was very young, and it was at the Church Avenue Church, and I remember you and your wife singing at the Church Avenue Church. The Church Avenue Church of God Prophecy Church, for those folks who are not.
Almost everybody remembers, get to know. I remember me and my wife because they hear us sing. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's been a trend of our lives from in the late 70s, early 80s, all the way up.
yeah, yeah. So that was actually one of my first memories of you, actually. But yeah, was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Lived in a very loving household, loving family. My mother and father were very active in the church, in the life of the church. And my whole family actually was just active in the life of the church. Um, Aunts, uncles, all of that. I really think fondly of those times growing up in the church. So yeah, I have two older brothers. So I was the youngest.
Okay, so you're the youngest. I don't even remember where you fell in the group, but okay, so you're the youngest
I'm the
amongst.
youngest, and I'm also the tallest. You can't see
Oh,
by the screen, but I'm 6'5". The rest of them, they're like we're all over 6 feet, but I'm 6'5". So I'm the tallest.
I'm wondering if there is something special about the last boy because my last son is 6'4".
Yeah, it's the
Okay,
blessing.
and and his other brother is like 5'10" and maybe 5'11", six the most, but he's 6'4", man. So I don't know what about the last one. Maybe they say the wash belly get all what's left.
Exactly. So I got whatever was left there. So I have like two older brothers. As I said, like really grew up in a really loving church family, really loving family as well as loving church family. I'm actually just talking to one of my friends about it. Like I really enjoyed growing up in the church, and particularly in our denomination at that time. It was a really formative time. So there's so many different ways I can tell my story. There's so many lanes. I'm trying to figure out which
So listen,
go.
we're gonna take it bit at a time. If you can remember how they fall in place, because stories are fascinating, and even if you miss one in terms of what's it systematically,
Mhm.
you can still go back and say, you know what, I should have said this. So we just want to hear the pieces that pops in your mind. Before we get any further, let me ask you. What was your relationship like with you and your bigger brothers? You're the last guy. I asked my friend last week the same question because you being the last kid, oftentimes there could be your siblings could be overprotective or they could be angry because you're getting all the attention. So I don't know. We already did fall with you and your brothers.
Yeah, growing up, so my eldest brother, there was like quite a bit of gap. I think my eldest brother was, um, I don't even know how old he is, to tell you the truth, but he was like 13, 14 years older than me, right?
Wow.
So there was quite a gap there.
That's a
So we,
really, really, really big brother.
yeah, 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 it's a really, really big brother. So, by the time I was growing up, he was like, living his life and young in his 20s. He didn't care about, us
Okay,
kids,
okay,
but,
okay.
um, but then my, my brother that was right before me, we're only 3 years apart. So we grew up a little bit closer.
Mhm.
Um, so we grew up, again, very close, tight knit family, did all the things that you do as a kid. Of course, we fought. Of course, we had our disagreements, but we were all kind of differently, and our parents allowed us to just be different in
Mhm,
our own
mhm.
unique ways. Really explore whatever things we were interested in. Um, and I really thank them, and I'm really grateful for them for that experience that they gave us. But it was fun, it was exciting, as well as also just loud because there was three boys in the house. My older brothers would be playing video games, and I was never really into video games. I was always like reading a book or something else like that. So definitely was like the nerdier one of the three. And then as like life went
So
on,
you were the nerdier one of the three?
yeah, definitely. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the one reading everything.
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
really play video games that much. I still don't. Like I have a Xbox, and I play it probably maybe once a year,
Oh
if that much.
wow.
So I just never could get into it. Never got into cartoons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah. So that was like that was a relationship between me and my brothers. It was very good. and also just very different. We all kind of went off into different lanes. And as I got to my teenage years, skip a few years, if I got to my teenage years, my middle brother, he went off to the military,
Mm.
served in Iraq, Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did the
Okay.
whole shebang. So, he'll be gone for like, we would hear from him for like 6 months at a time.
Wow. Wow.
So, and that was in some of my formative years. And
But like the Iraq and thing, you were still very young that time.
yeah, I was 9/11. I remember 9/11. I was in the eighth grade and actually could see it out of the window of our of my junior high school because
Yeah.
I was in Brooklyn. We actually saw like when the towers fell down, like
Right.
you
Right.
just see
Right.
it all. Yeah. So
Wow. So
yeah.
I'm just curious. Were you ever worried about your brother in the military in the
Oh yeah.
battlefield?
Yeah. Because he joined like it was not too long after that. It had to be if I graduated in 2006 from high school. Yeah, he joined like in 2003, 2004 into the military. So it was right at the height of that Iraq war. So of course, and his role he was known as a Cav Scout. So he went before the infantry
Hmm.
that came in. So it was definitely like very worrisome, very worrisome,
Yeah.
and more for my mother than I think even I.
Of course, of
Yeah,
course, of course. I mean, that's where the mother's heart really lies. So of course it's gonna be a lot more than the brother just miss his brother, but the mother's saying, "No, that's my baby, that's my child." So
exactly. Yeah,
pray to God every day that he's okay on the battlefield.
yeah, yeah. And thank God he made it out without any concerns. So
Thank God for that.
yeah,
All right, Daryl, back and forth in school, doing all the good things at school. What was it like? You're the nerdy guy. What
yeah.
was it like for you going to school?
Wow. I haven't been asked these questions in a long time. Um, Going to school was fun. I thankfully had a really great education. My mom was very involved in our education. So, again, my hat goes off to her for a lot of this. But by, by God's grace, I was always like in the like gifted programs. I went to gifted schools. So from elementary school, I was in like the gifted program, went to a specialized middle school. In high school, I was in the gifted program. So it was throughout my educational experience, it was very much so like not only was I nerd, but I was surrounded by nerds, honestly. So I had no choice. We were all fighting to be the nerdiest one.
Oh,
Now,
really?
now that doesn't mean I did my homework all the time. There's a difference there. I still like to say I was a little bit on the cooler side. At least that's what I tell myself.
Gi-
But
give me a little insight into the thinking process, the thought process of a nerd. The classification of a nerd and the environment of nerds. So how do you
yeah,
define that?
I think it is marked by a certain level of curiosity of of how the world works. And I must apologize. You might hear my son in the background. He's 5 years old, and he's going to be doing his thing every so often. So if you see me just look over, that's all it is. Or if you hear it, that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm hearing him, but I'm hearing you too.
Okay. So one of the things that give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Hey Elijah, can you keep it down?
Okay, my friends, we're talking to Daryl Lobban, and we are, hey, he's past, he's still a young man, so he's having kids. So
Yes.
we're gonna have to be patient with him as he
My
deal with
apologies.
his reality. So
Yes, no, absolutely. And he's a very active kid. Um, but yeah, so um, where was I? Yeah, so the environments of a nerd, and so I think being a nerd is marked by a certain level of curiosity, and curiosity about just how the world works, um, and and just having, and I think that's what makes you a nerd is that
uh,
there's something that you like hyper focus on, and actually and once you get this kind of hyper focus on something, you just you just go to the end and you try to get to you just keep on
Peel off all the layers.
peel off all of this. So normal answers just don't do well for me, which is why it got me in trouble in school. It got me in a lot of trouble. I was just at my home church, Crown Heights Church. So in the story, my father moved from the Church Avenue Church to the Crown Heights Church, and I
Right.
was just my Crown Heights Church Sunday school teacher came up to me. Um, like this is like 2 weeks ago, and she said, "You're the one that gave me the most trouble in Sunday school because you would ask me the questions that nobody wanted to answer." So that is there.
2 weeks ago.
This is just 2 weeks ago. Yes, 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 yes.
Oh
So
wow.
sorry.
All right, my friends. Excuse the
Yes,
interruption.
yes. Sorry. I'm putting my headphones in because I think it'll be a lot better and easier to hear me.
I can hear you. It's just maybe we won't hear him as loud
Yeah,
if
you
you.
won't hear him as loud. Exactly.
Yeah. So we're talking to Reverend Daryl Lobban. I have not seen the man in a long, long time, but I'm excited to see him tonight. So let's, and I'm just getting to know his
Yeah.
story. So let's see how much we can get from him tonight.
Yes. So yes, I think that's what makes you a nerd. And being in like in those environments, it was just like this pursuit of knowledge, right? You're always trying to get more knowledge about whatever the field of inquiry is, whatever the thing that you're looking at and digging deep in, you have to just get as much knowledge and be able to kind of bring it all together and make sense of it. So that kind of is the story of my life, trying to bring all these different things together and make sense of it.
I've spoken to a lot of people in my life, but I don't know if I've ever spoken to one directly say I was a nerd. I'm good.
Like yeah, I mean, at this point, I just own it. Like
And that's okay. That's fine, and that's fine. So tell me now, because you said that you were in a circle of nerds, and one was trying to see who's going to be the nerdier of or the nerdiest of them all.
yeah.
How did that turn out for you?
Um, of course this is my competitive side. I felt like I was the nerdiest, but I actually wasn't. I look on like Facebook, Instagram, see like what some of my friends who I went to junior high school with, college with, like some of them are like senior leaders at Fortune 500 companies and doing amazing things. So actually, I tell young people, be the nerd. Like, don't be cool, be a nerd. Like one of my buddies who I went to junior high school with, he is a senior leader at Oracle, which is one of the largest tech
Mhm, mhm.
companies. So I do encourage everyone to go ahead, be a nerd. It is totally fine.
And we're gonna get to the nerdy part of you, and the success of being nerd, because when we get to the things that you are doing and are involved in, that to me that's a whole lot. That's a whole lot. So maybe we'll figure out how you get there.
Yeah,
So we're gonna climb it up the ladder a little bit, a little by little. So all right. So nerdy in school and progressed on. Tell me, where did Daryl's life go? Bit by bit as you climb up and as you move from stage to stage. What were the experiences?
yeah. So I went to, I think, a huge part, and this is probably a part that some of my friends know. Well, actually, all my friends know this part about me. So I went to a middle school, and this is formative, and this is going to like play out in different areas of my life, and this is the arc that I think I'm going to go with, and then we're going to end up in theology where I ended up on one hand, and then also how I moved on, and just kind of bring it all together. But when I was in middle school, actually. Um, this is a very true story. We had to not only like excel academically, but we also needed a performing arts to do, right? So
Hmm.
actually, I started off playing the violin, and that was where I started. Again, another nerdy thing, right? It takes a turn. So I started playing the violin, right, and orchestra. So I started. So here you have this kid from Brooklyn, and what I'm playing on my Walkman at that time is a whole bunch of classical music, Brahms and Brandenburg concertos, and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, and then to take it like a step further, one day I know this is a very I'm going to just keep it real. But one day I'm walking by the dance room, and I see all the dancers in there, all women, right? And again, I'm a young teenager, like 10, 11,
Mhm.
right? And I see all the women in there, and I say, I need to be there where those women are. So then I decide to join the dance team, and
Oh,
you know, I was saved and sanctified, but I also saw that, right? Um,
so I was saved and sanctified, but was a human young man.
as a human young man,
Okay.
and I encourage people to still be a human young man, right? So I said, "Oh, I must be in there," right? But that actually played a huge part of my life, right? Because then I started doing ballet and modern and things of that nature.
So what age was that?
I was in probably like sixth grade, sixth, seventh grade when I did that.
So you were so fascinated just to be among the women that you go do ballet.
I did ballet and modern. I said, that's where the women are. I don't want to hang out with the guys for this whole time. So I said, I'm going to go where the women folk are. And that's what I did.
Oh
But also,
wow.
I fell in love with the craft in a lot of ways. And that's going to play out later on. We're going to
Okay,
that
we
story a
take
little
it. We take it as it comes because it's fascinating already.
bit. So um, I started doing a lot of that kind of work. And so not only was I doing scholastic things and being nerdy, I was also like very much so into dance and the performing arts
Performing, yeah. Okay, all right, okay.
and playing the violin. So I was doing orchestra, dance, as well as like brainiac science things. Right at the time, I
Wow.
wanted to be a medical doctor, so
Oh man.
that plays into it. Um, So that's like middle school. That's my middle school years. Then in high school, I then go. So the middle school I went to was a very gifted. It was a school just for gifted children. Philippa Scholar School for the gifted and talented. That's
Wow.
that's what it was. In the middle of Bushwick, New York, you actually had to take a test to get in to the school, and it was very selective.
Wow.
So did that. Actually, the story about that test is that I got in the fifth grade. They only had like two classes in the fifth grade. Most people would come in the sixth grade. I got into the fifth grade class, and this is also some of the integration is my mom tells a story that the night before that exam, I had to wake up early, like on a Saturday. The Friday before that, they were having revival services at Bushwick, and we didn't get home till like midnight. And my mom was like, "How are you going to pass this exam?" Because back in the day, Friday night is when the fire came and things would get hot.
All right. You
And,
know that. And I'm going way back. If they were having tarrying service, it
oh
might be
yeah,
Friday
yes,
night into
yes.
Saturday morning,
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
kind of stuff.
it's just long. It's just very very long. And my mom was like, kind of like, how are you going to pass this exam? And by God's grace, I got in. Like it was like only had to be like no like 50 slots. We had like hundreds of people taking this exam, thousands, and 50 slots, and I was able to get in on that. So
Man.
something in the prayer of the saints that
Well,
night, carried over the next morning, and that I was able to test in and get in early into the school.
good for
Um,
you.
so that was like that, and then high school, and kind of like part of my faith journey is also like in here. I got saved when I was 7 years old. So actually at a revival service, at a tent revival service, when they used to do tent revivals in Brooklyn for like 2 weeks. It was either I think Palma Hutchinson, who's now the pastor at Crown Heights. She was
Hmm.
the preacher, and this started a relationship with me and Palma that I'll pick up in um, pick up that faith story later on. But 7 years ago, when I was 7 years old, I remember being at the revival service and getting saved. Then later on, like a few months later, I joined the church. When I was 8 years old, I was a member of the church. By the time I was 12, I actually finished all the foundation courses and all the requirements to be a minister. By the time I was like 12,
What?
I took all the courses. I was done. By the
Hold a
time,
second. Hold a second. Hold a second.
yeah,
You get saved at 7, 8.
hmm
By age 12,
yeah,
you already take the took the courses for minister.
Yeah, by 12, if I'm gonna be extremely generous, 14 at the max, maybe, right? But around that time, I can't remember the time, but I used to go on Saturday mornings, take the foundations course. I had all the requirements to do, yeah,
So
Christian.
what made you want to take the courses then?
Um, so I always said I want to be a doctor and I want to be a pastor. It was actually the
Okay.
thing, right? So there's a part of that in there. Um, I will say that, yeah, so and I'm a nerd. So that this is how it comes up again, right? So I like to learn and I like to read, and that's all it was. So I was like, sure, I can read. I'm going to read. So I finished all the exams, passed it all. So my stuff was on file in headquarters from when I was like 12 years old, just waiting
I,
for me
I'm,
to be
I'm
done.
I'm I'm curious because what was your father thinking? And we're going to get to him later on. But what
Yeah,
was your father thinking of his young son? You know, in the pursuit, in the nerdy aspect of your life, in the going in after the ministerial education. What was your father thinking? And what was the conversation between you and your daddy at that time? He
yeah.
said, Daryl, are you sure this is what you want? What was
Oh,
his
yeah.
conversation?
I really like give like honor to like my father. And my parents, even how they raised us in the faith. And I kind of encourage a lot of people to raise their children this way. They never actually forced their faith onto us.
Hmm.
So of course you had to go to church on Sunday. That was like understood, but there never was a like, you're gonna. They didn't drag us along. They allowed us the freedom to do as we want. So I remember, and my father actually, I got baptized. Again, at that time I was attending the Church Avenue Church. Um, my father was the baptism preacher, if you will, for that
Okay.
service.
Okay.
And I was like, Dad, I want to get baptized, right? I was like 7. And my dad was like, you sure you just don't want to wait, right? And I remember saying this to him, and he reminded me, so that's probably why I remember it. He said, I said to him, what if I die tomorrow?
Wow.
So I think at that point he was just like, all right, go right ahead.
So now we know that you're under real conviction.
Yes. I said, what if I die tomorrow? And he said, okay, go right ahead.
And I'm sure he didn't want to be the one responsible. So you know what?
Exactly. He said, all right, go ahead. So got baptized at the Malta Street Church. That's when we used to do like our baptism as a district.
Right, right.
So yeah, so that's like that's how I kind of grew up. It was in that. So I had like these different parts of me. On one hand, um, faith was important, education was important, also performing arts, and those all kind of get intertwined and kind of like the different spokes or the different areas of my story that will continue to manifest over and over again.
Wow.
Yes.
My friends, I'm talking to Reverend, now Reverend,
Now,
from the youth aspiration, from the youthful aspiration of being Reverend, Pastor. The man actually live up to it. We're going to get there a little bit later. But um, I'm thinking on the I never heard about the violin because I didn't know what your journey was and what things were like with you. Yeah, but normally, no, I'm curious about what inspired you to want to play violin because that's not normally a
yeah,
black boy's
yeah,
piece of instrument. A black young
yeah,
man.
sure.
A violin is not typically a black young man's preference of instrument. So what triggered the passion for violin?
Yeah, I think it goes back to some of this nerdery, right? I thought it was fascinating, right? So I think, and this kind of goes with along with I think some of the one of the things that my parents did, which was really good, was they kind of encouraged us to be curious about the world and to really just
Mm.
try things out. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, keep it moving, right? I look fond. I remember fondly my mom every weekend. Um, my mom would wake up on Saturday mornings. She had a book like this thick of every activity that you could do in New York City, and every museum, every activity, and she would just say, hand it to us, and she would say, y'all pick. and me and my brother would argue about what we're going to do, to the point where I think we went to every museum in New York City. So we were just always exposed to like different things,
Wow.
and encouraged to try things out. So I can't even remember the conversation when I told them that I wanted to try violin. They were just like, okay, like try it out. If you're good, you're good. I remember I came very close. The reason why I stopped playing violin was I was pretty decent. I was the in my junior high school, I was the second best because in the school, right? Um, the reason why I stopped, I think, was because I, at one point or another, I auditioned for a Juilliard program, and when I didn't get into it, I was so upset that I never
Oh,
played it again.
oh.
Um, but the thing I actually wanted to be was actually not to be a concert performer, was not to be a violinist. I wanted to be a composer and a conductor. So
Mm.
so I know how to read music. I still I still dabble in it, so I can still read both on the treble and the bass clef. And when I was younger, I would compose my own music and then
Oh,
try to play it out and try to make sense of it. Now they have technology. I wish they had the technology they have now, which I could just
I
play, hit
know, right?
record. But back then it was staff lines, and you had to like quarter note, half note, whole note, do the whole thing. So, um, but yeah, so and that's some of the things that I want to do. So I can't tell you what inspired. It was just like try it out, see what you
Okay,
want to do. Yeah,
okay, okay. Try it out.
yeah,
And it's kind of interesting, trying something different.
hmm,
Because it tells me that, okay, I just don't want to be the average, like
yeah.
just be in the same mold of everybody else.
Yeah, that's actually the truth. Like if you tell me that it's weird, I'm going to then go do it, right? I have to see if it's really weird or are you just saying that it's weird, right? Which is why also, I was a tall black boy from Brooklyn in modern dance, right? And doing pretty well in it. And the whole thing. And it was just like, who cares? Like I don't care.
So
What
hold on, yeah. So okay, again, what were your friends thinking? Let me get back to your brothers first. Well, one of your bigger brother was like big man gone about his business, but
yeah.
what were they thinking about when you get into dance? I'm curious about it. I'm curious about seeing what your parents thought when you come
Yeah.
and say, I want to join the dance with all girls.
Yeah. Um, I mean, again, I think my parents allowed us the the liberty and freedom to just, all right, try it out. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Like whatever, right? Um, my friends are all quirky. We're all nerds, so no one cares about what you're doing, that kind of thing. Now, my friends outside of like my quirky like bubble were like, you dance, and even to this day, I still get that. To this day, like you did what? Because it shows up later on in my life, and we're going to get to that part of like post high school when I actually started like dancing professionally, right?
Hmm.
But it was kind of like weird. But also in the church, I also was a praise dancer, which is so
Oh, all
wild.
right, all
Yeah,
right, all
but they forced that on me, right? I didn't want to.
right.
Um, I will say more about that, but I don't want to get in trouble with
Well,
anybody.
well, I mean, you
But
can't get in trouble now. You can't get in trouble now. It's only reflection.
yeah,
You're not gonna go back and pay any price for. But so maybe they're saying, yeah, well, if you're dancing, might as well dance for the Lord as well.
yeah, that's what they said. And what I did actually at the Crown Heights Church was I started our dance company at the Crown Heights Church. I never really danced, but I did the thing that I enjoyed doing. So just like in when I was playing the violin, I wanted to be a composer. Actually, I never really wanted to be a concert dancer. I wanted to be a choreographer. So I wanted to choreograph the dance. I didn't really care about dancing myself, right? I enjoyed it, but it was really about the choreography. So that's actually what I did. We started Sela Dance Company because I was like, if we're going to dance for the Lord, I was a classically trained dancer. I mean, like ballet, modern. I know the moves. I said, if we're going to do this for Jesus, it has to be as good, if not better. So
Mhm.
I was not comfortable with the same tired moves that everyone does. I was like, so it would be 3 hour rehearsals on Saturday, in which I'm teaching these young women and yeah, mostly young women, like ballet and modern so they can learn how to do it correctly. And some have gone on and have really pursued a life in that. And now are like professional dancers. And even in Brooklyn, and when I became, now I'm going to jump into high school. In high school, I joined the dance company in high school. Um, and I became dance captain, male dance captain, senior dance captain. In my year, I had 70 men dancing on stage
Wow.
by the time I was
Wow.
done. And some
Wow.
of them went on to now perform in some major companies around the world. Um, they came in with no beat, and I was like, "Oh no, we're gonna get you together," and found the love and the passion for it. So then, um, now at the end, I had no, it was not seven, it was 40. I had 40 young men rather dancing on stage, hood kids from Brooklyn, nerdy kids from Brooklyn, boys. No, we're gonna get you together. And they say I was a drill sergeant, but yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. That's interesting. My friends, I'm talking to Daryl, Reverend Daryl Lobban. And I haven't seen the man in about 13 years. I haven't seen the man in a long time.
yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a long time. But it's good to be catching up with you. I must say I just ran into, for those who don't know, I just ran into him on it's LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn. I run into him on LinkedIn and send a connection, and all of a sudden, boom, here we are. So here we are catching up in the public space, catching up. I'm catching up with him just with everybody else right now. All right. So you moved on. Into high school, you're getting to the dance thing. And I know you say you wanted to be doctor, you wanted to be pastor. You by the time you were 14, you finished all the pastoral, the early foundations courses, etc., which is fascinating to me just to even hear that
Yeah.
because as adults, it's kind of pulling teeth to get some people to finish courses like those,
Oh,
so they
yeah.
can become qualified for licensure.
Hmm.
And at 14, you finished all those courses. So what did you do in the spiritual part of that before we get into the academical
Yeah.
continuation?
Yeah. So I was like very active in my church at the Crown Heights Church at that time. My so spiritually, I was, I was still studying scripture. I really had a love for God. Still do have a love for God, right? I really have a love for God, love for scripture. Was memorizing scripture. I was like, doing all the things, preaching in children's church. Actually, going back to Church Avenue, they had me preaching in children's church, right? Um, so that's where I really started, right? But actually, where my ministry started, and I think this is really important. Where my ministry actually started was in going out on the street corners, feeding the less fortunate. That was like actually my first ministry. Was going down at early in the morning. We would cook, pack a whole bunch of meals, then go out on the road and just feed the less fortunate. Um, and do a lot of that kind of thing, and pray for people on the street corners. That's what gave me like a love for people more than anything else. So I didn't really care about like preaching in the pulpit that much. It was about like, how do we use the gifts that God gives us for His glory, and doesn't have to be preaching. I think it was, I forgot who said it, but he said, preach often and when necessary use words,
Use
right?
words. Yeah,
you
I
know
know that line.
um,
Yeah.
and I really felt like that is what it means to be a Christian, more so than even a minister, right? What it means to be a Christian, right? So I was active in that. I was also active in the life of like my youth ministry. Had some really good mentors. My shout out is to Anna, who was my first youth leader, like first real youth leader. The reason why when I was 14 years old, this I remember, when I was 14 years old, she took me on a mission trip to Nigeria.
Really?
Yeah, which was wild. With Palma, it was Maurice, it was Anna, it was me. it was the other Daryl. He's now a bishop in North Carolina. Daryl, I got his name. Um, and a couple of other folks. We went to Nigeria for about 2 weeks, I think it was.
Wow.
Um, Really random. I don't know. To this day, I don't even know how my parents even allowed me to go. Like it was like 20 hours on the plane. It was long. Um, and actually, that's how me and Maurice became close because I sat next to Maurice and we actually had to share a room in the middle of nowhere. And actually, let me not say the middle of nowhere, kind of know where it is in Kaba in Kogi State in Nigeria. And it was there that I felt the power of God like never before, right?
Wow.
So, as I said, I was saved when I was young, sanctified. I got filled with the Holy Spirit. I remember at assembly, Kathy Creasy was the international
Hmm. Hmm.
children's director,
Yeah.
and we still were close. I just saw her a few years ago. We're still close. I remember she was preaching one night about speaking in the heavenly language, and then it was in that moment that I got filled with the Holy Spirit. I had like an international assembly, um, and then so I was primed for ministry and wanting to be in ministry and really use my gifts. So yeah, so I went on the mission trip and then came back even more fired up and was just active in the life of the church, attending the conferences. But I never had the chance to attend a conference. Being around Maurice and Palma and also Trevor, those all became like mentors to me.
Mm.
Trevor was also the international youth director. Now he's the Bishop of Florida, I think now.
Yeah, just recently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, I'm calling them all by their first name.
That's okay. I don't think they'll be offended.
They wouldn't be offended, but that's just how I know them. Um, but yeah, but they were all mentors for me, looked out for me, and kind of poured into me throughout the course of my life. So, giving me opportunities to really serve. I never really preached that much. It was mostly about serving them, serving the ministry, and just locking in wherever I could, and also doing that in my local church at the Crown Heights Church. So yeah.
It is so interesting to me because as you told me about your street corner ministry,
Hmm.
and I thought for a young man, must be unashamed, it is, it's like hard to get people to go on the street, especially in their neighborhood,
Yeah.
where they grew up, going to go to school, to minister to the guys who they play ball with, you run around.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking unashamed, purpose driven,
Yeah.
passionate about touching lives. And I like the point that you made, because and I remember who wrote that, says preach as often as you can, and if necessary use word,
Hmm.
because we think everything lies in being at the platform.
Yeah.
That's where everything happens. Unfortunately, you don't touch lives in the same way like you touch them at the street corner.
Yeah.
So
And I think,
that's
and that's where I still remember. I still see some of those folks' faces, right? Um, and that's where the real ministry is really to be out there. On the yes, Daryl Clark. I saw your post, Florence. It is Daryl Clark, Bishop Daryl Clark. Yes, in Nigeria. Um, um, yeah, that's where the real ministry is, right? Yes, ministry happens in the four walls of church. Don't get me wrong, but we're commissioned really to go out
that's
there,
that's
right?
where the commission really
That's
is.
where it really is. We come back to be empowered, and then we're empowered to then go and serve and really share the good
and,
news of
and we
God.
and we come back to celebrate what we did.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So that's not. So that was like really, really important for me to like kind of understand that that's not where ministry is, and that's why I kind of live out my ministry. I'm now skipping like 20 years, right? But how I live out my ministry now is not confined to a church um, all the time, right? Love it, all that good stuff. But it really is about being where the people are and going where the people are, meeting them there. Because one of my theme scriptures, I have many. I have a few, but one of them is Isaiah 61 or Luke 4, where Jesus says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for He's anointed me to preach a good news to the poor, to declare liberty to the captives, to open the eyes of the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to declare the
Set at
acceptable year of
liberty
the
them that
Lord."
are bruised.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing, right? As the church, as the people of God. So that was kind of my framework and orientation to living out the gospel, right?
Man, now I
Beyond
know.
religion.
Now I know, looking ahead, and I'm going to get there. Now I know why you are involved in so many things and why your philosophy is what it is.
Yeah,
Wow. Driven by childhood days, youthful passion up into this point. So it's not like happenstance.
no, yeah,
It
mhm,
grew into where you are.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It was those experiences, and also it was. I also want to give like shout out. It was the seeing the examples of my parents, who I believe were very humble about in their walk, and I really love them for that. And also the people that surrounded me in that time. So I mentioned Anna, but also Stacy Goburn. Everyone knows Stacy Goburn. Like shoot, and that whole, and also my friends and Kim Goldberg as well. Like these were people who walked with God but weren't pretentious about it. They didn't have their nose up about it. We were just very relaxed, and really taught me how to be a Christian in the world, and not and not be like holier than thou, but really. And I think that's what being on the street corner meant: touching some people who were honestly very funky, right?
Mhm.
Inviting them in, and being close, and being in proximity to people like that totally changed how I view what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a minister, a person, a member of clergy.
Wow. I'm talking to Reverend Daryl Lobban, and I'm excited to talk to him. I know knew the young man back then, but I didn't know what his life entails. I didn't know what his experiences were, or what were his involvement in the church. I mean, he was in Crown Heights, from Church Avenue to Crown Heights or Bushwick, all over the place down that side. I was way up in Rochester back then, way
Yeah.
up in Rochester, New York. So it was like eight back then, 8 hours away, driving from where we was. So I didn't have, only on big occasions that you'll run into people like these. But now I'm getting to find out the man was passionate and was so involved, and this is like news to me, and that's why I'm excited about having program like this, because we get to know you, and I'm sure some people who even were among you in Brooklyn will be surprised to hear that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not to mention just passing the girls and just want to dance because that's where the girls were,
Yeah.
and owning that, I was a sanctified young man, but I still had some attraction.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, sanctification doesn't take away that.
Just
Okay.
take away
Back in the day, they used to say
doesn't
sanctification will
take
take away the root of
it.
sin.
It doesn't take away human feeling and
No,
human nature.
no.
I just did a podcast and struggling with the nature of sin versus living with the habit.
Yeah.
Struggling with the nature versus living with the habit. You can't get rid of the nature because it's human, it's
Yeah.
natural. All
Yeah.
right, we're not gonna go down that path, but we're gonna we're gonna continue. All right, okay. So exciting about that. So I'm curious now. I don't remember what point in your life did your dad? What year did your dad pass away? What
That
age were
was
you?
so I just graduated from college. So I can tell
Okay,
you
so a little bit later.
a little bit later. Yeah. A little
All
bit
right, so
later. Yeah.
let's get up there.
Yeah. Let's
Let's
get
get
up
up
there.
there. So
So
you were a grown young man by then. I remember that too. But struggling with what you wanted to become
mhm.
as a young man, when did you narrow it down,
Oh, it does
and
not.
why and how?
So I'll share this story, and it kind of would capture a number of things, right? Um, one is one of the things is so I was at a science high school, um, so, as well as we had performing arts there, right? Which is why I did the dance there, but I also had science. So I wanted to be a doctor. Thought I was going to Columbia. universities, college for physicians and
Hmm.
surgeons. That's where I was headed for med school. That's what I was going to do. Um, but I needed to get to college first, right? There's another story about how I actually go to seminary, and that's another story, and we don't need to go to that story. But to like, so I had to go to college. So how I go to college, I auditioned to get to go to college. I was a dancer, right? So I auditioned to get into Long Island University. I actually got a choreography scholarship into Long Island University, and became a dance and biochemistry major. So I was doing a
Man,
dual major at the time. Became a part of the Honor Society for Biology. Still dancing. At that time, again, this is the goodness of God. Was um, no, actually, I'm going to move the. So that I did 1 year at Long Island University. I remember standing at the going to register for my second year at Long Island University, but something as to use the language of the psalmist, something was disquieted within me, right?
mm,
So, but
wow.
so I, so I went and
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that word in a while. This is.
hope there in God. That's where the scripture goes on to say. But um, um, so my something was just not right in my spirit, right? Like um, I then, so I just registered for my next year of classes at Long Island University, and I go for a walk. And Long Island University is in Brooklyn, New York, the Brooklyn campus. I go for a walk across the bridge. And when I go across the bridge, I find myself at the New York City campus of Nyack College. This is a true story. I'm in prayer, and I end up there. So I walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, come down, and I find myself at the New York City campus for Nyack College. And something
So,
was
so,
just
so no, so no, not to break you, but I'm going to get you another scripture quote because you're a preacher. So now you're going to say, "The spirit of the Lord was upon me, and he
he,
carried
he
me."
carried me. He drove me. You know, that's Luke chapter 5, right? The Spirit of the Lord carried me away.
All right, is
Um,
that is that was that Ezekiel's, and he carried me.
he carried me away. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
thinking about Jesus being
yeah,
carried,
yeah,
driven into the wilderness.
yeah, yep, yeah.
Um,
That too, that too.
so yeah, so I was driven and carried by the Spirit to Nine College. I go in. I don't know why I'm there. I already registered for my second year of college, um, and then I went up to the school, um, and I just started applying. I just applied for the college. I said I'm just going to apply here, and applied for was again this is my nerd coming out for the biblical research program, which is like 4 years of intense Hebrew and Greek, and
Whoa,
I'll talk about that some more in a little bit.
wow.
So so I said so I applied. A week later, they said I was accepted. I was accepted. They gave me all these scholarships and the whole nine. And I walk away from the dance major and biology major in that moment and pursue biblical and theological studies.
Wow.
It was on the whim. The truth of the story is that when I told my father, this is a very true story. When I told my father that I was not going to, I said, Dad, I want to be a pastor. What he said to me was, go do something else. It's the truth. That's what he told me. He told me to go do something else. On one hand, on one hand, I understood why he said that, and later I'll tell a little bit about that story. Um, and and maybe I should have listened to him. I don't know, right? You know, whatever, right? But there was something in me, and I don't know if that was his way of making sure that I knew that I knew that I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Um,
I'm gonna underscore the word you used earlier. Disquieted within me,
yeah.
because and I know, God bless your dad, was a great man, but if that's where the Lord wanted you,
Hmm.
the other things maybe wouldn't be as fulfilling,
Yeah.
even though they might bring more returns,
Yeah.
but maybe not as fulfilling.
Yeah.
So we'll take it from there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, Lord have mercy. So I leave Long Island University, and I enroll at Nyack College, and was in. again, I'm used to the gifted program, was invited into the biblical research program. It was only four of us across the whole Nyack College because
Wow.
it took you had to do 2 years of Hebrew, 2 years in Greek, so that by the time you were done, we were translating the Bible out of the Septuagint, which is the Greek, into the Masoretic text, the Hebrew, and then translate it to English and then do it in reverse. So,
Wow. Whoa.
so we like I know the Hebrew and Greek, which makes me a horrible parishioner because I'm like that's not what the Bible says at all. So it gets me into a lot of trouble. So and how they did it was that we they taught us immersively, so they spoke it to us. We didn't read text for 2 years. It was they just spoke it to us until we got it into our system, and then we were allowed to read it. Right. So I can speak Hebrew, like lech al shulchan, like walk to the table, or we know all the prayers. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Right. We can like it was like ingrained in us.
Well, I could do a little bit of St. John NRK halagas, so
Exactly. Yeah, we also did Greek. Yeah.
Pras Pantheon, we could get.
So like it was very like powerful. It was amazing, right? We studied the Hebrew. It was just like four or five of us, and we were just like locked in to a certain extent
That's
as a
incredible.
cohort.
That's incredible.
And so I followed and did theology, biblical and theological studies, focus concentration in biblical research, and yeah. So the beauty of all this, right? And this is why I say it pays to follow the Lord. So even though I walked away from dance as my major, my mentor was this man by the name of Chuck Davis. He was I call him my dance grandfather. And Chuck was the foremost teacher of African dance in the country. So even though I stepped away from dance, because he was who he was and was a well-known choreographer in Brooklyn, they have this festival called Dance Africa. He was the one that did it, which is the largest African dance festival in the country. Like
Mhm.
millions of people every year, shows, sells out, Brooklyn Academy of Music every year. He will allow me to dance with these major companies. So I had the opportunity to dance with the Dallas Black Dance Theater. I had the opportunity to dance with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. I had the opportunity to dance with some random folks, all because. So even though I said no to it on one hand and followed where I felt the Spirit was leading me, God still allowed me to fulfill a lot of it. That I was able to be almost at the pinnacle of modern dance, um, even without doing all this other things. So that was just the grace and the favor of the Lord in a
Wow.
lot of ways. So I still was able to still do it one way or another. Yeah,
I mean, again, I'm not saying I should have known,
yeah,
but this is like really strange, fascinating news to me. I mean, just hearing all of this. I mean, I had no clue. I know, Brother Loban's son, who eventually become Pastor Loban eventually, and all of that stuff. I know the Loban guy, but I had no clue that the level of involvement and the things that you were doing, and I mean, those are high levels.
yeah, yeah. God has opened up a lot of things.
Incredible, incredible,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, yeah. It's it's truly like it truly is the blessing of the Lord, without a
Wow.
shadow of a doubt. And I don't say that like I really truly mean that. God has just been, yeah, God has done amazing things. I've seen God do it. That's all I can say. I've seen God do some impossible things.
Wow.
Um, so so that was so that's my college. So I kind of like lock in and I step away from dance after a while and just really lock into theology quite a bit. I gave up my dreams of becoming a medical doctor. My father didn't like that too much, but as a son of an immigrant, you're only allowed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. That's it. But thanks be to God. I lock in and I really enjoy it. I become a theological nerd. That's
Now
exactly what
here we
happened.
go again.
Yeah.
Right, okay, all right,
So
okay.
that's what happens. I told you, it's going to come back around. It all comes back around.
So
Um,
the nerd the nerd character or the nerd personality or the nerd curiosity or the nerd intensity of learning never walk away. It's like, and again, again, we can find something in scripture. You know, the same passion that Paul had, Saul had.
yeah.
You know, he brought it into, and it was the same passion. You know, so okay, so now
Yeah.
we're not pursuing the science and the performing art and the rest of the world, or the world turns. But now we're going into the spiritual aspect of what are the theological deep depth of what
Yeah.
God wants us to know from the Word. So
Yeah.
now,
And I would say all this time I still had a very deep. I was reading theology from when I was young and really deep in like heavy theology, very interested in philosophy, and now I became really focused on biblical studies. Second Temple period, I can go for hours on these things, right? And then really became really interested in systematic more. And if I was to go even deeper to like put a finer point in Black liberation theology. So that's where I end up, right? In Black liberation theology. And we can talk about that for 10 hours, right?
wow.
Particularly in these days and times that we're living right now. But it's really like my biblical studies really helped form me. And I sat at the feet of some amazing scholars, world renowned scholars in theology, um, who not only did I like get to know them as my professor, but also as my friend. To like, there are times in which me and one professor, his name is Dr. Cleotha Robertson. I'm giving him a shout out right now. He's a seminal Old Testament professor, pastor. He has more degrees than I don't think anyone else. He went to Gordon Conwell, then he went to Brooklyn College, then he got his PhD from NYU. They got a DMin from Louisville. Then he just collects degrees for fun in the Psalms and all that craziness, right?
Oh, wow.
Um, but I remember we'll spend time after class and we're there arguing. I'm arguing down with him in class about whatever theological things. We were having full blown arguments in the middle of class. And then we'll stay after class. We're shutting down the college at like 11 p.m. and we're still going at it and just enjoying being with one another, and wrestling through the text. So it was times like that that I really enjoyed. And I'll hop on the Ford train heading back to Brooklyn. So yeah.
One of these days, I might invite you to come back so let's we go and talk theology.
Oh
You
yes,
know,
I
yeah,
enjoyed
not
it.
not the story, but by the time we might be pulling your brains on some of the theological things and you know, some of the interpretations. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
so we have some weird interpretation of Bible. You know, we have some
Oh, yeah.
weird interpretation of Bible.
It is.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, but also to be fair, you might think some of my interpretations are weird. We're all a little weird, right? But yes, I understand.
Listen,
I understand. But there,
I,
I
I I've been to seminary and university as well. So I know, yeah, maybe not as much as you got because you dug so deep in it, but can have a conversation.
oh yeah,
Have a
absolutely,
conversation.
absolutely.
And it is unfortunate that we are so far
Hmm.
from true biblical interpretation,
Yeah,
and because of that, we put unnecessary pressure on people
yeah.
that the Bible doesn't
The
require.
Bible's preach, Reverend. I mean, yeah. That's one of my themes, right? Is like, yeah, there is, yeah, because of how we read the text, we have
And
yes,
again,
yes, yes, yes.
I don't
You
want
can
to
go,
divert. I
yeah,
don't want to divert from
yes,
your from your story,
yeah,
but I think we run into a lot of issues when we try to interpret Bible from a cultural perspective, and so
absolutely,
I'm going to leave that there. That's a
yes,
big problem.
yes, absolutely,
All right.
100%.
So let's get back into college. You're getting out of college.
Yeah,
You
I got
got
out of
all
college.
this Hebrew and Greek and all that stuff knocked
It's fun.
down.
I became a nerd. I found my nerd tribe in college, and I dig deep in there, thinking that I still wanted to be in ministry at this point. Was dabbling like, oh, maybe I'll go for a PhD, maybe not. Like, still uncertain about what I was going to do. But I graduate. by then my father was the pastor of the Crown Heights Church
Right,
at that
right.
point. So I became his youth pastor, right? I actually, yeah, this is a true story. Yeah, actually, this is very true. Talk about my mentor. I was actually set up to be a youth pastor in Florida at another
Mm,
church in
mm.
in, in Church of God of Prophecy, actually. Um, or no, I can't tell you that one. That one would get me in trouble. No, no, no. He passed away, so I can talk about it. Or to be a youth pastor at an actually, I'm not gonna say it because it would cause too much ruckus. To be a youth pastor at another church within the Northeast region, um, and to really be mentored by someone else. And I made a decision to, and I'm glad I did it, knowing what I know now, and that my father will pass away. And my father was like, "Hey, Darren, you make the decision that you want to make." um, I decided to stay with my dad and be the youth pastor with my father, which was just amazing.
So you were thinking of you the possibilities were there
Yeah,
to actually go someplace where you could benefit, if I could use
yeah,
the
spread my
term
wings.
benefit,
Yeah,
benefit. Yeah.
yeah,
So I say I stay here just as a son to serve.
yeah, yeah. No, no, absolutely. Like, so I had like two open possibilities at the time. One came with a house in Florida. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Church of God Prophecy Church too. Um, and I said no. I want to like spend time with my dad. Like my dad, I'm going to ride out with him. So I stay, become the youth pastor for the Crown Heights Church. Um, was doing that, and yeah, on what July 10th, 2011, my father, when he was up early at 4 o'clock in the morning, suddenly passes away. Like it is as sudden as I don't know how to tell folks how sudden it was. It was sudden. The truth of the matter is,
Interesting, because I think my mother passed away May 2011,
mm, yeah, yeah,
and then your dad July 2011.
July 10th. Um,
July, and that was just a shocker to the whole Northeast region, and
yeah,
all of us were just like dumbfounded.
yeah,
Your brother Chester died. He's just
yeah,
like, "Are you kidding me? Are you
yeah,
kidding me?"
yeah. It was a shocker. It was not anything that we expected or knew. The craziness, I won't say funny, but the craziness is that my dad went to the doctor on the Friday before. He also got a haircut on the Saturday, which was so random, right? Um, so like he was almost preparing for it. We got a letter on. My father passed away early Sunday morning, like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, the
So
Monday,
one will say you want to go to heaven looking good.
yeah, he went to heaven looking good. Like he already had his shape up, and he was straight, right?
Wow.
And it was weird because he went to bed early that night. It was just so many things that was just like weird about that last night with that I had with him, and I think yeah, yeah. So the Monday, we get a letter from the doctor saying, "Mr. Lobban, you have a clean bill of health. We'll see you next year." Like it was like, well, got to tell you, doc, you may have missed something, but honestly, as far as we know, and I don't think we even shared this publicly. I don't know if we did, but like they've done medical examiner did everything. They actually escalated his to like extreme like autopsy to figure out
Hmm,
like
hmm.
what is going on. And they found nothing. There was no aneurysm. There was no heart attack. They said, yeah, his heart stopped at some point, but that's not what started anything. No aneurysm, no clots, nothing. They really do not know. We actually have no cause of death is the crazy part. But he went on to be with the Lord, right? And
Oof. Wow.
and yeah, so yeah, I was just reliving some of that moment. So that was like a shock to me. The crazy thing was that was the week, that weekend. My father passed away that Sunday. That Saturday was convention, and that is when I was supposed to go before the ministerial review board
Oh, wow.
for my ordination.
Wow.
Um, And of course, Bishop McKinnon at the top, like, Daryl, you don't have to do anything right now. You're good. Don't worry about it. And I was like, I'm still going to do it. Like, I'm still going to fulfill my duty here. And I drove up with, now he's deceased, Brother Wint. And we drove up that Friday, Saturday. We drove, I think my review board was like on the Friday, and I came back down the Saturday. And then we prepared for his funeral and all of that.
I'm trying to remember because I know I was on the review board back then. I'm not even sure if I remember that part.
Yeah, I remember
Because
who. I'm trying to remember who was in the room. It was in Springfield, Massachusetts. That's where it was.
yeah, we must have been there once or
Yeah,
twice. We've been to Springfield. Yeah.
yeah. So so I was there. I passed. Um, so yeah. So I became ordained in the Church of God of Prophecy. But it was at that point that really shook me, right? In a number of ways, it cracked me in
Hmm.
some ways. I will say that um, one of my good friends, y'all probably know him. Do you know Dean Conrad Barnett? But Dean is what I call him, right?
Dean.
Yeah. He
I,
he was, he was out in Boston.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
him.
Oh, you know Dean, right? He said to me one time when I was growing up, he used to always come down to Crown Heights, so he was always interested in like in my development as well. And he said one time I sent him a sermon that I preached. He said, Daryl, this is a great sermon, but you haven't been cracked yet. And I was like, oh, okay, right. And I think it was in that moment that something in me cracked
Mm,
and cracked open.
hmm.
Because it's one thing to preach from your head, and even from my deep theological knowledge, it's another thing to actually marry that knowledge to real life experience.
Hmm.
And if you're going to, Garner Taylor, who was known as one of the princes of the pulpit, one of the world's best preachers who's ever lived, passed away. He was the pastor of the Concord Baptist Church of Christ in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, they call him the prince of the pulpit. He's amazing. But he said, if you want to be used by God, you kind of have to be cracked by God. That it pleased the Lord to crush him, right? If you want to be used, you have to be crushed. And I think that was, as I said, my life to this point, right, was very good. I grew up in a trauma-free house, a
Hmm.
drama-free
Hmm.
house.
Hmm.
My parents, they did better. They did as good or better than most financially. We were good, right? I had all the love and support. It was like I don't really have bad memories from childhood of like this happened to me and then that happened to me. And no, like my parents were loving. My parents not only loved us, but they loved each other. So honestly, I never heard my parents argue before. Is the
Hmm.
truth. I've never
Hmm.
heard them even raise their voice at one another ever. We don't even
Wow.
know, which is has its own problems that we don't know to do with conflict. We're like, that's the other side of it, right? But you know, you know, I never heard them like argue or do anything like that.
So if there is no conflict, you don't need conflict resolution. So
Yeah, exactly. I think in a lot of ways, um, but it was in that moment that things definitely shifted and things got cracked. The fairy tale of my life was just over. It was like I remember being there in the hospital. By the time we got to the hospital, um, my father had passed away by the time we got to the hospital, but they were still trying, and the doctors coming in, and they're like there's nothing we can do. Like even if we were to bring him back there, he wouldn't be the same. Like he wouldn't be here. Like there's nothing. And they say, "Are we gonna try?" But he wouldn't come back. My father took the first class ticket on to heaven. He was like, "I'm not coming back." Um, I remember being in that moment. I was crying out and on the floor at Beth Israel Hospital in Brooklyn, on the floor crying, saying like, "God, why?" Like mad, honestly mad at God. If I'm gonna be honest, totally mad at God. Right. So
and stick your pin, as I told one my guest last week. What we don't help people to understand that it's okay to be mad at God
yeah, it is.
and tell him how mad you are too.
Yeah,
You can tell him you're not gonna call his name again either in your mouth. You're done, because it would be strange news to him,
yeah, exactly.
because a couple of his prophets in the Old Testament did the same. Say, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I'm done. You can have
I'm
this.
done.
Take
I,
it.
I won't even call your name again in my mouth,
Yeah,
because it's human, and
yeah.
God is not angry because you're angry, and God is not
Mhm.
mad or disappointed, or I won't cast you because you're mad and angry, because He understands the human frailty and the human vulnerability. So He said, I'll give you time to calm down and get yourself together, and then come back to face your own reality and realize that you're not the worst.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Like you can be mad at God. It's called lament, right? You can
Amen.
lament with God, right? Like
You
go at
can,
it.
you can put on sackcloth with ashes,
You,
man.
you,
You can do all
you
of
can
that.
do whatever you need to do, right? God is big enough, and
You can handle it.
He can handle it,
You can
right?
handle it.
So
Yes.
so I was mad at God, and um, yeah, but anyway, but that just changed everything for me, and um, in some good ways, some not so good ways.
And so how did you put it together, put it back together?
Oh,
Because now the broken pieces are there.
yeah.
I heard Bishop Varlock made mention of a preacher once, and he was quoting a preacher. Says the preacher says, "It is amazing what God can do with our broken hearts if we give Him all the pieces."
Yeah. Um, I would say, yeah, it took me a long time to give him the pieces, to trust him again with the pieces, right? If I'm being honest, right? Um, it was a process and mourning, and try to paper over it at first, right? I would say, like, at first, God's got a plan, and all that stuff. So it was difficult for a long time, and lost my sense of self again. I loved my father. We had a really good relationship. I remember he just took me out to eat like 3 days before. We were sitting down, just having father and son time, just talking about life. In hindsight, he probably was preparing me. I don't think he knew that he was preparing me either, right? He
Of
didn't know,
course
right?
not. Of course
But
not.
his spirit must have known, that he was preparing me, for that moment. We had like our final like father and son, time. So it broke me, to move the story, a little bit, because I know we're past time. Um, I then, I'm there thinking like, what am I going to do next, right? So my father's no longer the pastor of the church. Bishop McKinnon then took over and became the pastor of Crown Heights Church, who in that moment was actually what I needed at that time, right? He was,
Mhm.
so we became close, and he, became like a second father to me in that moment. Um, so I decided I'm gonna continue what I was doing to a certain extent. So I started going to seminary, right? Um, I started then a master's program at Alliance Theological Seminary. But then, somewhere in there, I was like, well, it's time for me to make some money. Like, I need to, like, now, I have to like figure out life. I'm grown, have to do all that. So I start applying for jobs. I then become a full-time youth pastor in Boston.
I remember when that opportunity came. I remember
Yeah,
that clearly.
yeah,
And that was another organization, right?
yeah. The AME Church and the African
Amy, I
Methodist.
remember that time clearly. That Daryl's getting an assignment up in Boston. Boston, he's gone to another church, and I'm
Yeah,
saying, yeah, to become a youth. So yeah, I remember that clearly. That must have been the last part of your story or the little piece that I recall when the last time that I had this Daryl in my mind.
yeah, yeah. I got. Actually, I was juggling between. I had an opportunity where somewhere else in prophecy. You had an opportunity somewhere else in prophecy, or go to the AME Church, as well as I had another opportunity. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, so I'm not going to share what that one was, right? Um, and honestly, I decided I needed to leave prophecy, right? Not because I love the Church of God prophecy, like I know all of it, right? I loved it, right? But I needed I had all this support through all the years. I don't want to ride on anyone's coattail. I needed to see for myself if I had the juice or not, right? Whether this was, I needed to go out on my own and spread my own wings, right? And leave the safe cocoon of the church. If I stayed in Church of God Prophecy, I probably would be, I'm not, I'm not tooting my own horn or anything. I'll probably be a pastor, maybe a bishop or close to one at this point, right?
I'm almost sure you would.
So I understand that track, right? And I could see that a mile away, right? Like we're just gonna and probably get fast tracked through some things and all that. But I was like, I need to see what it is. I need to go out there. So I then become the youth pastor of a pretty large, pretty influential church in Boston, Bethel AME Church in Boston. Um, and up there, I cut my teeth, and then I enrolled in seminary at the Boston University School of Theology, which is the same seminary of Dr. King and Howard Thurman and everybody, right? Um, and that helped mold me in a different kind of way, right? So Nyack was evangelical. This was now a liberal seminary, but there was some. But my favorite professor in Christian ethics was a Nigerian Pentecostal, which was and they still he still don't wear a wedding ring or anything like that, right? So, but he has the highest chair, the Walter G. Mudler Chair of Social Ethics. His name is Mimi Wari Boko. I encourage every Pentecostal to read his stuff. It'll take you a long time to read his stuff, but it's good stuff. But like it was good to be there in Boston, to be formed in a new church tradition. It's something totally different. I will say this story goes long because by the time I'm done, I served in about 7 different church denominations. By the time I'm
Really?
done, yeah, I have a journey through it all.
Really?
Yeah.
Over what period of time?
So Church of God Prophecy, AME, Baptist, Episcopal, UCC, RCA, and almost became a Methodist pastor too. And then I worked for an organization that represented 19 Christian denominations in Massachusetts.
So I'm curious. I'm
Yes, sir.
curious about the diversity, the differences,
Yeah,
and because all of those that you're naming, coming from Church of God of Prophecy, classical Pentecostal,
yeah,
to evangelical, to Baptist, to
Episcopalian.
Methodist, Episcopalian. I
Yeah,
mean, all of those
I love
have
them. They're very
almost have their own genre, if I could use that term.
yeah, it's different. It's
If I
different,
could use that term,
different
right?
flavors of
So,
Christianity.
so how do you fit into all of these different beliefs? To a certain extent, we got some of
Yeah,
the fundamental things together,
yeah,
but veer off
yeah.
at some point.
I would say I try to focus a lot on what we do agree on. For me, I say over the course of like my studies, I do 3 years in seminary, get my MDiv. I then do additional studies at Duke and a whole bunch of other things in between there. I'm currently a fellow at a college at Hebrew College, and do a lot of stuff around interreligious and on the work of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, right? So I do a lot of stuff on that right now. But like how I kind of my theology has grown in some ways, and the more it grows, I realize what Paul says that we see through a glass dimly, right?
Hmm.
I think one of the things that we have a lot of these denominational distinctions, most denominations split not because of theological differences, is really bad Christian behavior, right? It's very little. So the reason why the AME split from the Methodists is because of racism. The reason why um, Church of God, why Assemblies of God split from the Church of God in Christ is because they didn't like it was racism. They didn't like to answer to a black man, right? All the things were not really about theology. Our theologies are very similar. As someone who's
Hmm.
been in 7 of them, 95% of the theology is just about the same, right?
The fundamentals are
The
there.
fundamentals. And who was this? I think it was Augustine. He said, in the fundamentals, unity, and not in essentials, unity, and non-essentials, liberty, and in all things, charity, right? So that's how I kind of like, there's certain essential beliefs that I believe, right? For me, there is a God. I could say it very quickly. There's a God. He had a son named Jesus. It's almost like the Apostles' Creed. I know we're not a
Hmm.
credo organization, but Jesus came, Jesus died, Jesus rose from the dead. Everything else we can
I
discuss.
believe God the Father, Son, the
And the
Holy
Holy Ghost.
Spirit,
Yeah,
etc.,
yeah.
etc.
But everything else beyond that, we can discuss. I can see.
And some
Yeah,
part is structural, operational,
yeah, yeah.
etc.
Like a lot of people, like Methodist is talks about like the methodology. Episcopalian speaks about the fact that it's Episcopal structure. Presbyterian speaks to like their presbytery. It's really about their church polity more than anything else. Baptists are big on local church autonomy, so it's not has nothing to do with theology. It's just
Mhm.
about how they're structuring the churches more than anything else. So yeah,
As a matter of fact, all of my well, I won't say all, but maybe 90% or 95% of my theological learning is from Baptist background.
oh
So
Baptist, yeah.
he says Baptist.
Hmm.
So, we did, and again, we didn't agree on a few things, especially when it comes to the operation or the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. We
Yeah,
we have we have we have almost all other things in common,
yeah. No,
except
absolutely.
the manifestation of the Holy
Except for
Spirit.
that, yeah. And you just have to push them a little bit, and they eventually get there.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I agree. So the theology is so that's how I was able to like navigate a lot of it. So I started AME, right? Which people should know, Azusa Street started at a defunct AME church, right? Um, that's where William Seymour met, but started AME and the Methodists. That's why a lot of our theology comes out of Methodism, and how we structure our churches come out of Methodism, is because William J. Seymour, the founder of Azusa Street, he they said, how are we going to structure the church? And inside the pews was the Book of Discipline of the Methodist Church. And he said, all right, we're just going to use this. So it's actually, that's how, there's no real theology behind why we do the things we do. It's just, that was the book that was available. But so I was AME, did that, was a youth pastor there. While I was doing that, I was also the interim pastor for a small Baptist church, Hope Baptist Church, at that time. So we had two services. So we had an 8 o'clock service, 11 o'clock service. I would go in between that at 10 a.m. No, 9:30, 9:45, 10 a.m. I would do a service for this small Baptist church
Oh man.
and then leave and go to our second service at 11 a.m.
Are you kidding me? So you're doing three services on a Sunday?
Oh, three services. Yeah, that was not even the craziest one. So so I was doing that. So I was in school full time, seminary full time, going to I had like I am Jamaican, right? I'm of Jamaican descent. So I had multiple jobs. So I was the full-time youth pastor, interim pastor, in school full time, as well as I was the director of external relationships for the Massachusetts Council of Churches,
You got to
all
be
at one
kidding me. You are kidding
time.
me.
I like to keep myself busy, right? Devil find work for idle hands. Um,
Oh.
the devil still found work for my hands, even though I was this busy, but still, the devil found work for idle hands, right? Um, so, I do a lot of that kind of. So to sum that up, so I was in seminary, was a youth pastor, small Baptist church, and and this is what started this new trajectory. I was director of external relationships for the Massachusetts Council of Churches. This is what got me into politics, actually. So I was a lobbyist on the state house level to represent 17 Christian denominations
Wow.
um, in the state of Massachusetts. So I'm there and then I became the civic engagement chair for the Boston Black Ministerial Alliance, um, amongst other things. So we were doing protest marches. I was at the state house testifying on the state house level to ensure that all the churches can keep their 501c3 status, and doing that in conjunction with all the education institutions. I was out there in middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, trying to. I helped being in coalition to pass some of the criminal justice um, some of the criminal justice reform bills in Massachusetts. I remember sitting down across from the governor of Massachusetts, and we were hammering it out as to why he needs to support this. Governor Charlie Baker, he was a pretty good governor up there. Why he needs to pass this, and having conversations with elected leaders. Every week we were having meetings with every elected leader in every Black elected leader in Boston. So everyone knows Ayanna Pressley. She's part of the squad now. Back then she was just a Boston city councilor, and we became friends, and we're just having, all right, summer's coming up. We know these kids are going to start shooting. What programs can we put in place? How can we come together to really impact the community? So I was tired of visiting at the time, being a youth pastor. Two major things happened. Some of my kids ended up in prison, and in 1 year, five or six of my kids attempted suicide.
Wow.
And I said, I mean, the gospel is important, and we still are going to preach the gospel, but we got to do something more. I need to figure out what is going on in these kids' lives. So that's what got me into more civic engagement. I don't even want to say politics.
So those were kids in your church leadership or from an institution?
Oh no, in my church. In my church. Yeah.
Wow.
Either going to prison or finding themselves on the other side of the law. I'm there
Wow.
going up to the prisons and saying and talking to them, speaking to them behind a glass wall,
Wow.
testifying for them in the prison, for their court cases, writing reference letters. And then also we had like this, uptick. Now, the church I was working at was a bougie church. I would say that, right? It was like, this is the who's who of Boston Black elites go to this church. We have justices of the Massachusetts Supreme Court, business leaders. So their parents are millionaires and they're vacationing on the vineyard and all this stuff. But there was still something deeply wrong going on, right?
Wow.
With all those pressures and all that. So that helped me to think, what is something I can do beyond? I can preach to them, but again, I need to, going back now, the story an hour ago, I need to go to the street where they're at and figure out, how do I disrupt what is going on in what's happening Monday through Saturday and not just on Sundays. And so that's what got me into like doing a little bit more civic engagement and being enmeshed in Boston politics. And so that takes me on a journey. And that's what got me to politics to where I am now.
Okay, my friends, I am talking to Reverend Daryl, and fascinating. So if you're joining us late, you got to go back when the program is finished and listen to the beginning part of it, because that's really fascinating. I'm going to let him take a drink of water and come back, and then we're going to take the last wrap, because I'm going to have to invite him to come back, because he's got a lot down in his sleeve that we need to tap into to find out some more, because he's been too involved. He's been too involved for us not to hear more. That's good Lord. It's crazy. So when I come back, I'm going to be talking to him on the last segment and see what else we can hear from. I'll catch you on the other side, my friends.
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m., join ORB Ministries on Let's Talk with the Doc, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. There is a story, something to encourage and inspire you. You may even have a life-changing experience. You never know what's next or who will join the conversation. Stay connected. Subscribe to ORB Ministries YouTube channel. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right, so we're back with Reverend Daryl Lobban. Fascinating story and serious involvement. I mean, I had no clue. I knew you went to one church up in Massachusetts. I didn't know you cover six or five more church. That is incredible. I
Yeah,
don't know what were your intent. Were you just was that the nerdy thing? Just want to discover everything, their function, their
yeah.
what was it?
I mean, I said it at the beginning, like an hour ago, hour and a half ago, like curiosity, right? Deep curiosity, right? Like I really felt like, I loved, I love the Trinity of prophecy, like love how I was raised, love the discernment, the humility, um, at least this is how I feel like the authenticity, right? It's something that it's hard for me to find, right? And I've been in many denominations, right? And you always on the inside looking out, you're like, oh, all these churches are doing so much bigger and
I
better
know.
and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's something real about Trinity of prophecy. That was my experience. But it was curiosity. So and God just opening up a lot of doors for me. So I then decide. I then decide to move to Washington D.C. Right, had a window of opportunity was open to me to use biblical language, and I then become two things happen. I then become the assistant pastor at Marble Collegiate Church in the city of New York, which is on 29th and 5th Avenue. It had like 2,000 members. It is the oldest church in America, actually. It was founded in
Whoa.
1628.
Wow.
It was the former church of Norman Vincent Peale. That's the UCC and RCA church that I became the assistant pastor of that church. So it was great. It was wonderful. Yeah, so they own literally Lower Manhattan, the land of Lower Manhattan. So where Wall Street sits on, they own because they go back to when the Dutch.
Man.
Um, so Marble Collegiate Church. So I did that like for a couple of years, but I am living in DC and also commuting up to New York for this role. And in DC, I then get a role as the director of communications and advocacy for the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, which is the Washington National Cathedral. So, um, which is was an amazing experience because what we do there, we bury presidents, right? So I had like John McCain's funeral,
Bury
George
presidents.
Bush's funeral. Um,
What?
it was exciting. It was an exciting time
So
doing.
so that church where they keep all these funeral services, that you're part of that?
Yeah. I was the director of communications for the Bishop of Washington. Um,
Wow. Wow.
her name is Marion Edgar Buddy, and you probably saw her. Everyone's just saw her like earlier this year. She was the one that when Trump got inaugurated, she said she was like, I appeal to you, President, that have mercy, and that's who I used to work
Yes.
for.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was there. Yeah, I
And
used to work for her.
she got some backlash for that,
Oh
right?
yeah, she did. Oh,
I
she
remember
did.
that. I remember that. I
Yes,
remember
yes.
that clearly.
Yeah, so that was my former boss,
Oh
Marianne.
wow.
I call her Marianne.
Wow.
But, so I used to
What?
work for her, and I did that for about 3 years or something like that.
Man, I could have checked with you to punch a line for me somewhere, man.
Yeah. So a lot of those things, I'll be sitting there writing like her things out, and like, so I was using all those skills to
Are
bear
you
on that.
kidding me?
Um, yeah, so that was exciting time, and as well as having being in charge of the communications across the 80 churches that's in her diocese. So making sure that they are getting together and coordinating communications and doing a lot of crisis communications because of all the things that were happening under the first Trump administration and all the backlash and protests and all that and all those kind of things. Um, Particularly, and this is like, and I was also director of advocacy, right? So really pushing for um, justice issues. Going back now again to where I started at, homeless ministry was one of the big things that we did, right? So trying to appeal to the city of Washington to build more shelters and things of that nature. Um, some of the Black Lives Matter stuff, like if you remember going back to the George Floyd stuff, right? Now we're taking it back a little bit. Um, when Trump stands on in front of a church and holds a Bible upside down
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in front of, they were breaking, that's in front of St. John's Episcopal Church. So I was responsible for responding to that, and we were actually at that time having like a protest march there, and he cleared it out. It was one that I planned, and he cleared it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
so
I,
yes,
I, I think he was asking the National Guard if they couldn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
to clear it out. Yeah, there was all that. There was all that madness.
Wow.
So it was a crazy time,
That's
right?
interesting.
Um,
Wow.
so then, so I did that. That was fun. It was good. Marianne, to her credit, and at the time I was like, Marianne, maybe I could become an Episcopal priest because they live such cushy lives, right? And she like what she said to me, which was very important to me. She said, "Daryl, you'll be bored."
Yeah.
That's what she told me. She said, "You'll be so bored." But while I was doing that, this is again another part of the story. While I was doing that, again, I'm Jamaican, so I have 10 jobs, right? So I was the director of communications for the Episcopal Diocese of Washington. I was also the youth pastor for Mount Olive Baptist Church in Arlington, Virginia.
Hey,
Um,
come
and
on.
and that
Come
is
on.
where and that is now that is my current home church. It's like where I go. I still, even though I'm no longer the youth pastor there, I now just lead the Bible studies whenever they ask me, and I fill in whenever they ask me to. Um, but that's where I consider home now. So, but I was being the youth pastor of that church as well as the Episcopal Diocese, and something I kept up until late last year, I think it was. Maybe it was I don't know, late last year when I stopped being the youth pastor. I was just like, I had enough. I am tired, right? Um, but so I left being the assistant pastor of Marble, moved to Washington D.C., did this stuff with the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, took on this job with the Mount Olive Baptist Church, um, and then I um, I then get another role somewhere else called the One America Movement, in which we're building out. I didn't leave those. I didn't left the Episcopal Diocese for this other job. So there's some. I'm not doing all of it, but that job allowed me to start traveling nationwide. Right, we're building these anti-polarization cohorts throughout the country, and in doing so, we were building chapters in every part of the country. So I built a chapter in Jackson, Mississippi, one in Danville, Virginia, and we were bringing together Muslims, Christians, Jews together to have conversation, but less about having conversation about why our differences matter. It was more about let us just go out and do something together. Let's go out and build a shelter. And by doing that, we would then lower the temperature. So who cares about?
My bottom line is like I told a Muslim in the hospital. I when I was doing my residency as a chaplain,
Mm,
he had his guards up, and he had his Koran in there in the room
Yeah,
with him, and I came in as a chaplain. He thought I come to proselytize him, and,
yeah,
and I said, calm down. I said, let's be human first. I don't come to talk religion and all
yeah,
that. I just come to see how you're doing. So let's be human first, because if
yeah,
we're human first, we have all things in common.
yeah, absolutely.
Religion may or may not come, but
Yeah,
let's be human. So I'm looking that to what you're saying there. Let's be human,
let's be human. Yeah.
and let's show human empathy and
Hmm.
care,
Yeah.
and let's put religion somewhere else and be human.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%, right? And we're like, let's put religion, oh, let's put politics to the side. Let's just be human, right? And
Mhm.
let us work on issues that we are all facing. We're all facing these issues. Let's really work. Let's really work on something together. So, so I did that, and then after that, I got poached by another. So I did that for like a year and a half or so, or 2 years. Um, I did get poached to work for a philanthropy, and that's when things escalated pretty big. And a philanthropy is a so I work for. I never really don't tell people this all the time, right? But I work for a billionaire. His name is Charles Koch. You may know him as the Koch brothers. But I work for
I
Charles
heard
Koch.
about that one. I
Yes.
heard about that one. Whoa, man, come on, man.
So I work for Charles Koch.
Where in the
Um,
world have you not been, and what have you not done?
yeah, it is wild.
How have you climbed all these ladders, these steps? How,
It's the grace of the Lord. I tell people, I'm serious when I say that. It's the grace of the Lord, and I'm able to then bring on all this information, right? Because at that time, these are the Koch's conservative philanthropy, if you will, right? They're not investing in like black communities or anything at scale, right?
Mhm.
So they, I get brought on because they love the work I was doing at the One America movement. My name got around quite a bit, in certain circles and things of that nature. So I become the highest ranking black leader in the organization. I mean, this is an
Wow.
organization of 1,500. I am one of three black directors across the organization. Everyone else is either like associates, maybe managers, but mostly, but I have now authority to disperse millions of dollars to worthy organizations around the country.
Wow. Wow.
Um, so I was director of faith-based investments actually for the organization. So I went and scouted out faith-based investments that we could like pour our money into for social good and social benefit. Um, so was it faith? No, faith-based partnerships or investments. I forgot the title at this point. Who cares about titles? So I do that. So I go around the country. I mean, I'm on the road 3 weeks out of every month. Some part of the country. Bill, one of the things I was most proud of was I built a close relationship with Bishop T.D. Jakes, actually. So um, did a huge investment there. So if you follow Bishop Jakes, you probably know about his entrepreneurship thing. I launched that with him. And that kind of blows up, if you will. It's called Good Soil. Um, and So that was one of my major investments that I did there. And we became close over the years and all the madness, and certainly became close to that whole enterprise. But it was really about like taking, like, how do we, you know, it's one thing to preach the gospel, but we also have to have a benefit for people, right? So I was trying to find who are those organizations that I could work with to create this benefit for the rest of society. So I do that for a little bit. I'm trying to wrap up because I know you have to go, and I know you have.
No, because when the story is too good and too much, we have to do a second time with
Yeah,
with guests,
yeah,
because I mean I can't even imagine how many things that you have covered in this time, and the places that you have walked and the things you have
yeah.
been involved in. There is no way we could cover that. We're gonna have on what 48 minutes, believe it or not.
Wow.
Believe it
Okay.
or
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
our
So we
48
can wrap,
minutes.
but
And,
I think
oh
I can put a
goodness.
pin into like where I landed right now, and then there's a lot that I
We
did.
definitely need to come back, because I mean, there's something that we need to be educated on, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Um, opportunities, where to look and how to prepare ourselves, and
Yeah,
etc., etc. I'm sure you can give insights
yeah,
into a number of things, from church, from a church perspective,
yeah,
that leaders can say, how do we rethink,
yeah.
our knowledge, or our pursuit of, just rethink how we conduct ourselves.
No, absolutely. I think there is a lot there, right? There's a lot of, I mean, I had the benefit of sitting next to, being up close and being proximate to some amazing leaders who built some amazing ministries throughout the years. That's one of the blessings that the Lord has provided for me. And seeing just how they do it, and sometimes thinking outside the box. Like, I think in many traditions, we just kind of stick to a certain
Mm-hmm.
mold and
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
and realize
Mm-hmm.
that there's other ways to like, there's more than one way to skin the cat, right?
Amen. Amen.
You
Amen.
can, there's
Amen.
many different things you can do to like really advance what I would say the kingdom of God. And that's how I try to live my life. So yes, I am ordained. I'm also ordained by the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship now. I also have like Baptist credentials and and Pentecostal credentials and the whole all that stuff. But at the same time, is really about, for me, it really comes down to like, how do we take this gospel that we have been entrusted and live it out? So yes, I still preach. I enjoy preaching. I have nothing against preaching, anything like that. I think I'm a pretty decent preacher at that, right? I enjoy teaching the word. Love it. Like, I would, an hour and 50 would not be, I could take one scripture, we could talk about it for an hour and 50 minutes. Like, I love wrestling the scripture, but I'm really, that's good orthodoxy. I'm really interested in like what's called the orthopraxy. Really, how are we living out our faith, right, in the
Mm-hmm.
world? And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a lot, and I believe my ministry is as much in the pulpit, but is much more in society and in the world. And really, um, the Jews have this term called tikkun olam, which means repairing the world, right? I believe as Christians, and to use the word of Isaiah, right, we're called to like rebuild the broken cities and restore what was lost, and do so that we could be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, right? We're called to be engaged in the world and really repair it. And I do that in economics. So we can talk about also that I co-own a business that housing, building affordable housing throughout the country, right? So
Oh,
that's one of the
we're gonna have to come back,
we
man. We're
commit
gonna
to
have to
that.
tap into your expertise, man. We're gonna
Yeah,
have to tap in there.
we could talk, but so it's not just about living out the gospel. It's not just about reading scripture, but living out the gospel in whatever and wherever God has planted you, wherever, become that tree of righteousness. And when and this is, I'll end it right here because time. Can I go a little Bible, just a little bit on this, right? When we talk about trees of righteousness, is that word righteousness? We view that word a lot of times as holiness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like personal piety. But the word in the Hebrews is a word called tzedakah, right? And righteousness is really trees of justice, right? Justice is actually the word,
Doing right.
doing right, and doing just things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when people say social justice is incompatible with the gospel, like, you have never read the prophets, because God doesn't come and throw them into Babylon because they didn't worship the right way. He throws them to Babylon because they start oppressing one another, right? So when he talks about being trees of righteousness, it means to, as Christians, we ought to be in this world as righteous people, which means we are giving people, we are generous people, we are loving people, we are gracious people, we advanced for the good of everybody else around us and for the social good of society. So we're not, one thing growing up was that it was very much so like a separatist view, like us against the world. But we ought to be engaged in the world. That's where I landed. We ought to be engaged in this world, and wherever that is, financially, in the economy, in politics, in the church, in education, wherever God has planted you, you ought to be engaged in that and be at the top and be at the best at it and move in excellence so that you can then transform it to the kingdom so that the kingdom of God can break through in it. So that's my but there's a lot more in the story.
Man, listen. We're gonna take note that we're gonna invite you to come back because I'd love us to talk a bit more about philanthropy and entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
How the church position itself in the community to be of service.
Yeah,
More service. I mean, what are some of the opportunities that are out there? That
yeah,
incredible. I
yeah.
mean, I just had no clue. I don't even know why I wanted to talk to you. I see the guys, but I think I was impressed with the with the about
Oh,
when I look at the about and said, "Whoa,
yeah.
man, how under God's heaven is he involved in all of this?" But little did I know that was just the bud because all that I heard tonight is just like, "Are you kidding me? Come on." That doesn't even make any sense. Oh my goodness.
I really take note. I'm just a regular kid from Brooklyn. It's really the it's really the grace of God, and I really mean
That's
that. The grace of God.
incredible. I mean,
Really.
that is absolutely incredible. Who could have thought? Who could have thought that Chester Loban's son, from Brooklyn, would have gotten to where you got involved as you are? I mean, that's just beyond my my finite mind, my limited comprehension. I couldn't. I mean, who could have foresee this coming? I don't think anybody saw that. But
Yeah,
I think God was shaping you from then with all the nerdy stuff, getting you involved, and the versatility and the broadness of the knowledge and the passion in the pursuit of touching people here. I mean, all those things packaged in the in what you have become,
yeah,
man. I know your mom is proud and your family is proud of you, but I'm also proud of you. Like you are, like I'm your father. I feel proud like that, and I have a lot of respect for that, and I hope that we can have another conversation. I did not get a chance to find out because you have a little boy making noise around
yeah.
there.
He's
I
out
I,
there.
I didn't even get to find out where
Elijah.
I didn't get to find out where he came in.
Yeah, yeah. He came in 5 years ago, so he's in that mix as well. And I get that's a whole another
A
part.
whole other story because I did.
Yeah,
We gonna have to. You're gonna have to come back. We're gonna pick up on that piece too and talk about some more things when we run into each other again.
yeah. I thought he would want to come over and say hi because normally whenever I'm on Zoom, he has to make an appearance. You want to say hi? And look, there he goes. Say hi.
Oh man, you got
He
all
got
that
here.
stuff. I had a
Yeah.
hair, and so he took. The father has no hair on his head, but he has all the hair.
Yeah, he took all the hair. Yeah,
Wow, wow, wow. Listen, man, my friends, I've been talking to Reverend Daryl Lobban. I am so excited about his achievement, his involvement, I mean, his knowledge. I mean, crazy, crazy, crazy. If you just, as I saw Sister Elaine says, you're going to have to watch the program from watch the replay. Once we finish here, you can go back and watch it. And by the way, everybody can share the program and invite others to watch a young man born in Brooklyn, roots in Church of God of Prophecy, spend his early years there, and boy, God has spread him out beyond what anyone could imagine. Man, I'm so excited about you, and I'm looking forward for you to come back and chat with us again on another Let's Talk. This was a really, really good talk.
yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we're gonna have to come back and talk again some more things. My friend, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook. And by the way, we do TikTok as well. So hey, we're gonna take it where the Lord allows us. And now that I link up with Daryl, he's gonna have to give me some insights and some insights and outsights that we can spread around a little bit more. All right, I'm gonna tap into it. I'm gonna see you again, my friends, on another
Yes.
Let's Talk with the Dog. You can stay right there, Daryl, and we're gonna go off like how we came on. But my friends, thank you for joining and thank you for staying. Don't forget to share with your friends. This is a good conversation. We're gonna have him coming back again another time to continue on this good conversation. I want you to take care of yourselves and be safe. And if you can't be good, be careful. But don't forget that Daryl tells us that ministry is more profound and more powerful and more impactful, not in the walls, but on the corners. touching people right where they are. I'll see you again on another Let's Talk with the Doc. Well, thank you for checking in on ORB Ministries. I trust that you will share with your friends, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, and stay tuned, because you never know what's next or who will join the conversation.